what a weekend with the assassination attempt on President Donald Trump. And the coverage after. I've been glued to this from the moment the attempt went down to right before we started the show.
It's one of those moments that I think years from now we'll know where we were when we heard about it.
Yeah.
That's the impact that this has had. It is a historical moment that everyone's talking about, so we're certainly going to talk about it as well. I was at the pool, my neighborhood pool, watching my two daughters swim, and I happened to scroll on my phone, and the first thing I saw was on Twitter or X, someone reporting that it had happened. Then I look at my text and received something from Hutton about it on our show's group text, and then started seeing the coverage flow in, and probably spent 30 minutes or so just scrolling for news on my phone about it. I said something aloud. The person in the chair next to me heard me. Then we started talking about it, and then eventually getting home, watching Fox News coverage, watching different coverage of what was taking place and how all the networks went live to Butler, Pennsylvania. It's a moment I'll never forget.
And we won't forget it because of the iconic photograph. There's two of them, actually. The one with the bullet going by his head, which is just nuts. And the other with the fist in the air, blood on his face, and the American flag as it's draped behind him, hanging behind the stage, is one that is going to last for the ages, honestly. Those two still images will be the ones that absolutely make this not just historical, but one of those unforgettable moments in time that we're going to be discussing, and because we saw it and we saw the coverage, but those who didn't will see this from the historical side of things. And the fact that he didn't get hit by that bullet other than the ear, he normally, in most cases, Trump does not address the sides of the stage. He doesn't move his head all that much, but they were showing a graph about something that was going to be later in the speech, but he brought it up early, and he turned his head slightly to the right. And as he does that and turns back to the right, it grazes his ear. But if you think about it, if he doesn't turn to the right, it hits him right in the back behind the ear in his skull, and he's dead today. That is something that it's crazy. The timing of all of that and the number of shots and the unfortunate death of one of those who was in attendance and the injuries. But the fact that Trump is alive today is remarkable, considering all the circumstances and how close this shooter was, this hopeful assassin was to Trump in the moment.
Yeah, and certainly prayers go out to Corey Comparatori, who was the 50-year-old man who was diving to protect his family and died in all of this. And Hutton, I think you nailed it, how different a story this would be if the assassin was successful in their attempt. And how, we're not even talking inches. We're talking maybe a centimeter, maybe two.
Maybe more.
Maybe
less.
From being a completely different story about you've got a complete reset of who the Republican nominee is going to be for president, who is going to challenge Joe Biden, who mentally and physically does not look well right now. You've got major Democratic donors and those powerful members of the Democratic Party asking the current president to drop out of the race and for someone else to take over. And then you've got a 78-year-old former president who, if assassinated, you're left with a complete restart of the whole process in this whole 2024 election cycle. Speaking of reset, I really hope and pray that this moment can start a bit of a reset for America. And the cynic in me sees the response on social media to some of this, and I think, we're still not going to reset. We're still not going to learn from the past. For those that think that these types of things are unprecedented, there was a 35-year span in American history where 3 presidents were assassinated in Abraham Lincoln, James Garfield, and William McKinley. That was from 1865 to 1901, 36 years we're talking about 3 different presidents assassinated. History has a way of repeating itself. I pray that this is the only attempt that we see on any president that's a current president, former president, anyone else. But if we don't reset and we don't remove some of the hyperbole that's being used across all media, we are dooming ourselves to repeat this process over again. I pray that doesn't happen, but there needs to be a lot of people who start looking in the mirror about how they cover things, about how they talk about things, because when you call someone Adolf Hitler and you say that they are going to be an authoritarian and they are anti-democracy and that a free democracy as we know it in the United States of America is in jeopardy if this person wins the presidency, many people are not going to understand that for what that is. Political BS and trying to scare you into voting for a different candidate, in this case, Joe Biden. When you don't recognize it for what it is, you get a 20-year-old, probably mentally unhinged person that climbs up on a rooftop with a sniper rifle trying to kill the former president and prevent Adolf Hitler from taking over. That's the way that person was thinking about this, and that's sad. And everyone who covered Donald Trump that way needs to take a look in the mirror and understand the possible ramifications of doing things like that. Hutton, I believe that we in the media, if you host a show, if you write about politics or world events or anything, you hold a certain responsibility to be truthful and to be honest. Let's get back to that truth and honesty. As a nation, as a media, for everyone, let's all do it together, and let's let this awful event cause a reset in our country.
Now, think about where we are today. Chad, you're right in all of the things that would be going on. We're in Nashville. What's the city of Nashville like today if Trump was assassinated? What's happening on the streets? What's happening across America? Total chaos. With Joe Biden leading the country and his own party wanting him out. And the guy who's going to win, and as Clay pointed out in the interview he had with Trump on Friday, knocked him out cold in the debate, and he's giving his speech at the rally in Pennsylvania, and he shot and killed not just who's running, but what is this election like, period, from that standpoint. And, I mean, every assassination comes with, or attempt, comes with your conspiracy theories. But you want to talk about misinformation flying around. I'm thankful that Trump's alive today just based on the fact that, I mean, a number of factors, but one of them being what society is like today if he were killed. Can you imagine?
No, and I don't.
The whole bill. We knew, and Will Cain has a great take on this that he posted Saturday evening for the Will Cain Show, and said, and hopefully we'll get Will on about this, said, this was inevitable based on the rhetoric, not the record, as I believe Biden said in the address, but rhetoric that was flying around. And while you don't have to totally unify as a country, because, I mean, democracy, you can disagree. But, I mean, some of the things that are flying around are just, you're lighting the fuse. And at some point, if you have your incumbent who, your own party, that George Clooney's telling you doesn't need to be running, but he's defiant about it, and you're at the very end of anything you can possibly do, and the party's saying that democracy is dead, it will be evaporated. It will evaporate if Trump is elected again. You're begging, you're almost laying out the red carpet for something like this to happen. And that is extremely terrifying to me, that it gets from news circulating around about what's not close to being true to everyone backing one guy and that guy not being good enough to back again. And you're left with no answer because you're still going to vote for the guy that your own party is telling you is not going to win the election, that will not beat Donald Trump in the second go-around. And so the lunatics are set up to feel like they're doing something on behalf of the nation that is just beyond beyond the scope of anything that I feel like is reality right now.
Yeah, and look, there are real stakes in every election. So I don't want to make this out to be like, there's not things that can happen to America. And we've seen it throughout American history that there are real stakes based on who wins the presidency and what they enact while in office. But the same way that I'll say, in 2015, if you read op-eds, you read reports, you read the New York Times, you read the Washington Post, you read any number of reputable media outlets during that time, Hutton, you would have thought that if Donald Trump won, that suddenly America would be thrown into Germany in 1932, that it would not be the America that we knew about it. And from what I could tell, 4 years passed and America continued as a great country at that point when that happened. Now, when Joe Biden gets elected into office, you would have thought by things being said both ways, this is going to be the end of society as we know it for both candidates. If Donald Trump's elected, America will cease to exist. If President Biden is elected, America will cease to exist. America's still here 4 years later.
Yep.
And we can have all these conversations about what Joe Biden has done and has not done. And those are valid conversations to have. And we can have conversations about his mental well-being at this age and whether or not he is fit and healthy enough to be the president of the United States of America. That's a valid conversation that we should be having right now. And most people are having it. But we have to distance ourselves from this end-of-the-world type talk about a political candidate because it spirals out of control into this. This is what we're left with. I think a great first step, first off, I like what President Biden had to say about it. There's no place for it. I think mostly he said all the right things in the aftermath of this. I get that he hasn't said the right things before it. And I'm willing to put that aside and say maybe there has been a reset with him with this incident because he's singing a different tune now. I love that Donald Trump acknowledged in his statement to the New York Post that President Biden called him and it was a good call and that he reached out to him. That's good. That is a good first step for this. Even Donald Trump is saying maybe the rhetoric and the tone of this campaign should change.
And we've got the post from Truth Social, I believe. Let's put that up. It's extending condolences to the family of the person at the rally that was shot and killed, others that were injured. And he goes on to say that nothing is known at this time about the shooter. There's more, and there's still nothing really known, even after they've gone through his phone, apparently, by the way. More on that later. Nothing's known about the shooter, who is now dead. I was shot with a bullet that pierced the upper part of my right ear. I knew immediately that something was wrong and that I heard a whizzing sound, shots, and immediately felt the bullet ripping through the skin. Much bleeding took place, so I realized then what was happening. God bless America. Here's what happened. Here's our video.
What happened to our country? Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
I'm listening to the Secret Service here as well as you're watching this live chat, and you've got a live mic going.
Move to the stair. Hold. When you're ready. On you. Ready. Move. Up. Move. Go. Up. Hawkeye's here. Hawkeye's here. Move it to the stair. Stair, get ready. Stair, get ready. We ready? Down. Down. Are we good? Shooter's down. Are we good to move? Shooter's down. We're good to move. We're clear. Let's move. Let's move. We're clear. Come on.
Let me get my shoes. Let me get my shoes.
I got you, sir. I got you, sir.
Let me get my shoes.
Hold that in your head. It's bloody.
So we got to move to the bus. Let me get my shoes.
Okay, my shoes down. Watch out.
Wait.
He's asking, he says, wait, so he turns back around to the crowd. Remarkable, the recognizing this moment, Chad. Yelling fight.
Yeah, it's a crazy scene
and on top
and
of it,
iconic video and photo.
On top of it, the crowd who, I mean, I wouldn't be sticking around if there's live bullets flying and you have an assassination attempt like this. The crowd sticks around. Isn't that nuts? If you think about just, if you're there, are you just standing around? You've got the guy who throws up the middle finger, the older guy with the beard here, right here. I mean, it's just, there would be pandemonium, and instead you've got chants of USA and Trump turning around with his fist in the air, yelling fight. That is, the side of strength there is something that in a moment of crisis and jarring, just in the moment news and decision making is something we haven't seen before. Like the live mics and then a leader turning around like that and doing that while he's bleeding down his face with his ear being hit by a bullet. And then the photography, everything is just a moment we're not going to ever forget.
And then there are people responding and saying that by saying fight, that he's inciting violence, that Donald Trump now is telling his people to take violence in their own hands. And I'm thinking, the guy was just shot in the ear, and a big part of any campaign is let's fight to take back this country and do this. That's on either side. He's not inciting violence when he does that. These are some iconic photos from a day that we'll definitely all remember.
Are you with me on the violence happens if he's shot and he's killed? Think about that.
I don't know.
You have both sides. You have the other
I
side
know what you're saying.
Coming out with statements, and they're discussing the whole protocol. There's an investigation on how this all went down. You have all that going, but you also have in the moment the crowd who is standing with Trump, there with Trump, and what happens after that with the RNC happening really, 2 days afterwards, where they had the roll call earlier today? I think there is, you want to talk about division, no doubt. I mean, you solidify Trump in that moment where you have those that were on the fence, they're now with Trump. And instead, I'm just thinking about what could have happened on top of it.
And I just think about, how did we get to this point? And how do we get to this spot where we're even asking those questions that you're throwing out about, boy, what if he is killed, and what does that do to our country? And does that set off something that none of us really want to think about or talk about or ever see in our lifetime?
Because the reaction would be, Chad, he's been assassinated because there was no alternative to win the election for the other side. That would be the assumption and the immediate reaction.
Well, I think about January 6th, right? And how does January 6th happen? Okay, and I'm not saying it's this. There's not assassination attempts going on or any of that, but it's still a black eye, right? It's still something you look at and say, this is because of rhetoric. This is because there are true believers out there that don't understand that a lot of this is political gamesmanship that we're talking about. That a lot of this is dangerous media games being played that leads to something like this. Now, what happened on Saturday, far more impactful and worse than what we're talking about here. But it's two causes, two diseases that have the same symptoms, and the same root cause of it is hyperbole. It's rhetoric. It's things being thrown around in headlines and things being said by people that should be being more careful with their words, like a president, that say things that lead to true believers out there following them into battle, and what they think is a battle. This 20-year-old gunman thought he was going into battle that day, and he was doing something right for America. That's what he believed on that day. And it's just all so sad to me. And when we talk about true believers and being truthful and being honest, say whatever you want about Donald Trump and whether you agree or disagree with him, and I certainly don't agree with everything Donald Trump says. But I believe Donald Trump believes what he's saying. I do believe Donald Trump is pretty genuine about his thoughts on America and what he wants to do as president of the country. I don't think when Joe Biden is calling him Hitler or is saying that our democracy is going to end if he's being elected, I don't think that's Joe Biden saying that. And I do have an issue with that. I think there is a fakeness out there about some of the things being said about Trump that is ginned up political talk to scare people into either not voting for Donald Trump or just scaring them into a vote for Biden.
Well, a lot of it's the assumption of and the push and narrative of media.
That's my yes. Yeah. It's the media pushing that about, hey, this is what's going to happen if you don't vote this side or the other side. Absolutely, that's a lot of it. But when the president starts repeating some of those things about this is what's going to happen,
let's shift the bullseye back to Donald Trump.
I don't believe that about Joe Biden.
Target, yeah.
Right? I disagree with Joe Biden on a ton of issues. I don't think Joe Biden's a terrible guy, deep down. I don't think he believes, I think when he calls Donald Trump and says, I'm happy that you're alive, I believe he believes that, right? I think that that's what he thinks and he wants, and he understands the political game of all this, but I believe there are things being said that even he doesn't believe. And I think that everyone needs to take a look in the mirror and ask yourself, how can I help get away from this? Everyone, it's fine to have a strong political viewpoint and to fight hard for your candidate and all those things. That's America. That's been going on forever. This is nothing new. But everyone should look in the mirror and ask, how can we help the situation to where this doesn't happen again? To former President Donald Trump, to a current president, to any former president in the future. Let's avoid a media cycle that produces insanity to this level.
Well said, man. And what's the speech like this week from Trump at the RNC? You know, that's a step forward in what you're saying if he goes that direction. In his first interview since the assassination attempt, there was a reporter that was going to be traveling with Trump after that rally. And apparently, like after all things were settled down a bit, Trump called her and she asked, hey, can we chat about what you're thinking and all this? And he said that the speech was going to transition into more of a unifying.
Great.
Well, he said he was going to try to bring the country together. Now, whatever that means. And then you have Biden in the address last night. I took this as more of an understanding and a realization that you can't be totally unified. I mean, in my democracy in itself,
right?
You lean one way or the other, and that's totally fine. But it's gotten past it's way past the main issues that we would identify with one party or the other.
Well, we got to bring back a humanity to it that it's not just this almost like nameless, faceless evil on either side that's being pitched by one media group or the other to try to prevent someone from voting for someone else. But yeah, I mean, political division is always going to be something in the United States. That's nothing different. I do, though, Hutton, hope that we get back to a place where we root for America and don't always root for party over America. That ultimately, whatever happens at the end of an election, you accept the results of the election, and then you root for America to do well, even if your party lost. I want to get back to that. I'll give you an example. This whole speech about unification and joining together as a country, that sounds great. You know, Joe Biden said that in his inaugural address.
That's right.
Hey, I'm going to bring everybody together. Doesn't matter who voted this. We're all America now. We're all in this together. And within 2 or 3 days, he's talking about us versus them again. They did this. They want you to believe that. They voted this way. Let's bring that back in. I hope what you're saying about Donald Trump talking to the reporter, I would love nothing more than to see that with this speech. I'd love for Donald Trump to talk about, hey, Joe Biden's not a terrible guy, but Joe Biden's unfit for office. We can all see that now. So let's unite and do what's best for America. And Donald Trump will sit there and say, and what's best for America right now is voting for me, and I'm going to have America's best interest at heart. I want something of that gist in this speech. That's what I'd like to see. Don't dehumanize the other side. Don't say, it doesn't have to always be good versus evil. It can be right versus wrong. It can be right versus left. It can be, here are the issues they're failing on. Here are the issues we're going to win on. All of those things. Get back to that. That's fine. The competitive level of that needs to be there in American politics. But we don't have to dehumanize the other side at all times.
Clay has been calling for increased security, like tripling not just the Secret Service staff, but like staffers around him, tripling security by their own campaign to make sure Trump makes it to September, and then makes it to the debate, makes it to the election in November. I was with Clay as this went down. Chad, you haven't heard this story.
No, I have not, but I'm looking forward to hearing it.
So,
because I saw the video.
Yeah. So that's my video skills there, the phone skills, which
it was
are
excellent.
not great. I'm just making sure you didn't get the crotch shot,
You're a regular Martin Scorsese with the direction of that video.
So Clay is about to go on this long calendar. Let's see. Was
it's
it
like a 2-month tour?
A 2-month tour, everywhere from Milwaukee this week to Israel to a bunch of other places. And Chad and I won't see him again until maybe football season, is basically what he's saying. And he's like, hey, I want to hang out. Let's do something. So he comes over Saturday. We go to the pool. We go back to the apartment, and things are winding down. We were planning on just going and grab dinner. And we've got Bluetooth on. We're listening to music or whatever, Chad. And randomly, for whatever reason, I just turn the TV on but don't have the sound on because the Bluetooth is connected to the surround sound, the sound bar. And we turn on Fox News. And as I turn it on, it's the moment where they're taking him away from the podium, and he's not throwing the fist in the air just yet. Or it's right as they're taking him down the steps where he's already done that. And I said, hey, it was mid-conversation, and Clay was doing something on his phone. I said, hey, what's going on right here? What is this? What's happening? The immediate thought from us, before I was able to get the sound on back to the TV, was, has he had a health issue? We have no clue. Does he have a heart attack?
You think he's collapsed or something's happened?
Yes. And then we find out that
could have gotten overheated for all you know and collapsed.
That's right.
Yeah.
That there was a security issue. And then we find out that, there were shots fired and that he was hit. Because they keep showing this on Fox News because they were showing the speech live. The reaction, Clay, 4 weeks ago, he's demanding, hey, if we're going to continue this, he's got to have more security. And the live reaction was just as real in the moment as it was when we recorded that video for social media for him, where he waited, by the way, because there were headlines across social media about, glass shards actually hitting him, or he's collapsed on stage. That was one of the headlines from one of the media outlets.
There was a ton of really bad headlines.
Well, the assumption
across media about what happened.
The assumption, like we had in the moment live, the same type of assumption.
Right.
But we didn't tweet that out.
Right. The immediacy of it leads to some bad headlines and bad reporting about what's going on.
And instead of the ability to cover a national and global news story without jumping to conclusions and instead having patience and just reporting what we know instead of what we think. Clay waited until we knew that he had been hit with a bullet and there was an assassination attempt to film the video. And I had the home studio set up, Chad. I was ready in case Fox called on Clay, like they do very often, ready to go live. He was sitting there in his
swim trunks
and a T-shirt And I asked him, I was like, do you want to record this here? He goes, yeah, let's just do it right here. Like in the moment, hit record, one take, one post. And he called me later that night and said, can you believe, like, you randomly turned this TV on as this was going down? And I was watching it live. I was like, no. Like, it's all just crazy. And, yeah, the numbers on that post are insane, too. But that was totally 100% genuine Clay Travis in that moment. And, Chad, I know you were doing a softball. You had a family event, didn't you, Saturday?
No, just I was at the pool with my family.
You had the kids out, yeah.
Yeah.
You found out, because as this is going down, I have this other TV in the studio that's on. It looks like, your TV cart from
seventh grade.
Yes, yeah, middle school. I wish. Well, I take that back. I don't wish I still had the 500-pound television.
Yeah, that thing was heavy to roll down the hallway.
You can use it for backgrounds, whatever. And I pull it in. So we had dual coverage going. And at that moment, I sent the group in the studio a text. I said, Trump's just been shot. He's alive. And this is incredible to just sit and watch as just a moment in history. You saw my text later, but you got on social media and you saw the same type of jump to conclusion.
I saw it pretty immediately, like within a minute or two.
Yeah.
When people were posting about it, I'd happen to be scrolling social media, then saw your text after reading and seeing the video and seeing what happened. Can confirm that Clay's tweet about the situation was 100% Clay Travis.
Oh, yeah.
With the language and everything he used to describe it. That was a very genuine response from Clay. I knew that the moment I read it. I'm having to grapple with another side of this of how much do I tell my 9 and almost 5-year-old daughter about it? Because I could not experience the media part of it, Hutton, the way I would want to, which is the way you and Clay did, which let's get multiple TVs going. Let's see different networks' coverage of it and how it's being followed and eyewitness accounts and all that. I watched a little bit of both Fox News and NBC, the network's coverage, back and forth. But my kids are running around the house, and when that video starts rolling, I don't really want my 9-year-old to even see it.
Yeah.
And then this morning, I happened to use the word on a phone call of assassination, and my 9-year-old says, "What's assassination? What does that mean?" I'm like, "Well, it's political murder." Okay, well, why is someone trying to kill former President Trump? Well, then we have a discussion about this. Then that opens the door to, hey, other presidents have been assassinated. JFK and Abraham Lincoln and James Garfield and William McKinley. And having that conversation with a soon-to-be fourth grader is a weird spot to be in, and I don't really know exactly what to say and how to talk about it other than being completely honest. But then I think back, Hutton, and I can still vividly remember being 7 years old, I think, at the time, and watching coverage of the Berlin Wall falling down. Or I remember coverage of David Koresh's compound in Waco ablaze on the nightly news. And seeing these things as a kid, even younger than my daughter is right now, and knowing a little bit about it, but not everything. I didn't really know the significance of the Berlin Wall crumbling down and what that meant for European history and world history. But how much do we even talk to our kids about it? And what do you say and how do you handle that? I'm struggling with that part a little bit, other than my decision to just be honest about it and say what's going on and say, look, there's a lot of messed up people in the world that, think that they are the ones to do something awful, and they believe they're doing the right thing by doing it, and it's never the right thing, especially when we're talking about politically motivated murder attempts.
Yeah. And here's the thing, Biden seems to be the nominee, right? I think we all know, we all know that another lapse in memory or the signs of dementia are going to show itself, right?
Every time he speaks, it shows.
I'm playing off. We're going back to your story and your thought process there. I hope we also don't see this again and how we can prevent this happening again. Even you've got a staffer for a congressman from, was it Mississippi, that's on there saying that she wished that the shooter would have actually taken lessons and been better at aiming. She's since been removed and fired. But just the automatic jump to there are other people that actually wished that he was dead right now. And because of that, I hope we're not headed down a path where we saw it once and we're going to increase security. We're not going to see it again. We have to do better than that, right?
Yeah.
To your point, to where you can actually move forward, not assuming the worst thing possible for anyone on any side.
It is ironic that a lot of the
So you don't have to do this.
A lot of the same people who would cry for someone to be canceled or fired for social media posts are now the ones that are about to get fired for social media posts in the wake of this, for how they responded to this attempted assassination, because I've seen a lot of that. I've seen media members immediately, I just don't buy that this was an assassination attempt.
Yeah,
or
it was like a...
And Hutton, you're right. There's always conspiracy theories
Everyone
around
jumps
any
to one.
assassination. But I would also say to do that in the moments after is just don't do it. Like there are smart ways to go about it and dumb ways to go about it. And to immediately poke holes into, I don't think this is all on the up and up, and I don't think this is that. I just don't go there. And I think there's a lot of people on social media right now you can go and read, and they're getting reposted. You mentioned the person who's already been fired. There's going to be others that lose their job based on what they said about this attempted assassination.
Yeah. It was the Jacqueline Marsaw was her name that posted this on Facebook. I don't condone violence, but please get you some shooting lessons so you don't miss next time.
I don't condone violence, but I
Oops,
wish that
wasn't me
person was
talking.
murdered.
Oops, that wasn't me talking. It was also a part of the post. Yeah, it just, yeah. So again, it was for Representative Bernie Thompson, I believe.
And that person has been fired.
Yes. The other thing, with the investigation going on and how this went down, protocol, all that, it's hard for me to fathom that people think that the Secret Service would not be on top of their game, given the fact that we just saw them throw their lives on the line in the moment. The bravery of that is extremely recognized by me and everyone here. I'm the guy who, and I told this to Clay Saturday over at my place. I said, the guy that has his back to the shooter, that is covered and then you have the story of someone ducking back down, as the shooter turns the rifle towards him. Yeah. The map. Here's the map of the whole setup for the rally, and it's the proximity that is so surprising to me. To get on the slanted rooftop, you have the accounts of those that were attending the rally saying that they warned, hey, there's a guy up here on the roof, climbing up on the roof with a rifle, with a gun, like absolutely insane. But approximately 160 yards away is outside the perimeter, quote unquote. I don't understand that part of it at all.
There's a lot of fake commando tough guys out there.
Yeah.
And it really, to quote our friend Tim Brando, it pisses me off. It really pisses me off, some of this stuff. The immediate reaction to criticize law enforcement or Secret Service and all of that, I don't know about everyone's background. They may have served in the military. They may have been a police officer. They may have been in a job where they rush in to jump in front of people to save their lives. I've never had a job like that, and I'll be the first to tell you that. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize the work of someone who is paid, not a ton of money, by the way, to be a human shield of bullets when they start flying for someone else, and that rushes to cover those people.
Yeah.
And as President Trump said, knocked me back like linebackers, all of them, and got me to safety all at once. So I'm not going to sit here and criticize and talk about them. I also don't think it's fair to the woman that's in the Secret Service, all the talk and rhetoric about her. And look, I'm not for quotas and all of that, but that's not her fault. She signed up for a difficult job that calls for her to put her life on the line for someone else, maybe someone that she even disagrees with.
And she's not the first
Doesn't
woman to
matter.
serve that
Like
position.
politics do not get involved in that, or they should never do that. I would tell everyone to read the book Zero Fail about the history of the Secret Service. One of the best books I've read in the last 5 years. It is terrific. Secret Service is a flawed organization, no doubt, and that book gets into a lot of it. But it also has a lot of people that are some of the best people and best Americans we've ever had, that are extremely selfless, that are extremely tough, and that are taking on very difficult jobs to protect those that we need in this country. So let's chill out on the immediate rebuke of anything with them, because ultimately the president's life was saved and he was rushed off the stage. And let's see what the investigation
when the shooter
shows.
was killed.
I don't know why someone was allowed to get on a rooftop that close, and I'm sure that someone screwed up in all of this. And I bet an investigation will show that there was some bit of negligence out there. But let's not rush to the worst possible thing, that this was planned or orchestrated, or that someone's withholding Secret Service agents from Donald Trump or any of that. I hate the immediate fake tough guy on social media response to, well, I would have done it better, or they should have done this, or they should have done that, when quite frankly, they don't know. The people that are writing that, most of them have no idea what could have been done better.
And here's the thing, Chad, you and I, everyone watching has someone they know that is in serving our country in the military, has served, wants to serve.
The difference, though, with us that know people that have served, we don't act like we are those people that have served.
That's right.
And we don't put ourselves in situation and pretend that we're commandos because our uncle served in Vietnam.
That's right. And well said. And we see, when we hear stories of what they've done, I have a friend, Chad knows, we have a friend that is conservative, but he was in charge of a staircase in Afghanistan at some place where President Obama was staying in the moment. And guess what he did? He did what he signed up to do. He protected our president.
And he would have protected the president with his life if that's what it took.
Absolutely. And that's what happened. They would have reacted the same way for Biden as they did Trump, or vice versa. And that's the mindset I'm taking and have been able to at least try to use in what and how I feel about politics right now. And I wish more people could do and think the way that those serving our country, putting their lives on the line, would do, regardless of who's making that call. They serve, they honor and protect America, and in this case, the President of the United States and former presidents of the United States, regardless of who they are.
A lot of these people are heroes, and even if they don't get the chance to ultimately end up a hero, what they try to do on a day-to-day basis is heroic, and I think that most of them are pure of purpose. I'm not saying all. I don't want to talk in totality about everyone, but I think pretty much everyone who gets into these lines of work are very pure of purpose and are way more selfless than most Americans.
And they are,
and I commend them for that.
Based on the President of the United States.
Right.
I wouldn't, if anyone you wouldn't select someone that would be negligent based on that role and the service of what they're doing.
Yeah. Now, all that being said, negligence can happen.
That's no doubt.
Mistakes happen,
But
and I'm
you
sure that we're going to learn about
with
mistakes that have happened.
with that intent.
Right. I don't think anyone went into this thinking,
no,
we're going to leave that roof open for this 20-year-old to climb up there and fire shots.
But
I'm sure that there was an oversight in some way, and we're going to learn about it. But let's learn about it and let the investigation happen and figure out everything that happened on that day before rushing to social media with all of our plans and all of our ideas about how extremely selfless heroes got it wrong on this day. Let's get away from that.
Get away from the assumption and wait and have some patience with the investigative process. Like they now say they haven't figured out much more based on the cell phone that they have been able to use and crack open.
I would love to see fake tough guy on Twitter be thrown into a situation like that and see if they respond exactly the way they tweet they would respond.
Yeah.
Or what should have happened.
And they say that Crooks, the shooter, told his dad he was going to a gun range on the day of the shooting, that his father told him he was going to a gun range, so his dad let him use his AR-15 style rifle. Crooks would occasionally go target shooting and use his father's gun, the source told ABC News. Since this wasn't an unusual occurrence, the father didn't think anything at the time, the source said. Crooks recently purchased ammunition, both online and in person. That from ABC News' Mike Levine. That's the most recent update on him. As news comes out from this, we'll continue to discuss. Just in the moment, solid reaction there, Chad, because your perspective way different than mine, and I have not thought about it the way you did. And I hope we don't have to get to a point where you have to have that discussion anytime in the next few months.
Well,
honestly.
and there's no way to like totally shield your kids from all this. They're seeing it, they're hearing it,
but
they're
at
hearing it at
poolside
school,
or whatever, yeah.
But just to talk about it in the moment, and they want to know. I mean, kids are sponges, right? Like she wants to know everything. What does this word mean? What is this? What's the motivation? Why would someone want to do this? All those things, and it's how exactly do I talk about it, and what all do I say about it? Because this is going to be a moment that my 9-year-old remembers.
Yeah.
You know, just the way I remember the Berlin Wall coming down, or just the way I remember
9/11,
Waco, 9/11, you know, and things before that, certain elections and things. So how we talk about it is important.